hello.
Hi everyone.
Hello. Good afternoon. Welcome to episode number 10. Yes. Hi, Pascal. Hello. Hi, Lindsay. So happy to see you all here. Okay, we're going to get Dr. Because last weekend we got to all be together. Dr. Perlman, he's in New York, we're in Miami, and we went to New York to an event, and we got to meet her there. Hi, Dr. Perlman.
Hi, Varisa.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
We have a few people that already joined in. Welcome to episode number 10 of Mom's Talk with a French accent.
Yep.
So we're Cecile and Fanny from La Petite Creme, founders and friends, and moms and French. So that's for all of that. And then Varisa, you're here with us. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Dr. Varisa Perlman. I am a pediatrician who's currently also working as a holistic health coach. So, and I met these two in Miami Beach, but I'm currently in New York. But we all have a good time wherever we are, right?
Exactly. Like once a parent, once a professional, it's with you. You take it with you wherever you are. So
Yeah.
there is no shying away from it.
Yeah. I can't believe we've done 10 talks. Is that crazy?
Exactly. That's 10 hours of talking, which, knowing the three of us, doesn't surprise me too much.
That was easy.
So we have a few people here, and we also have talking point from a post that we did earlier about this week's topic, which is the fourth trimester. So do we want to first talk about this topic? Because it seems like an intriguing one not for a change, because we love to pick topics that are a little mind-boggling.
Yes.
But fourth trimester, what do we hear when we talk about fourth trimester?
I think it's a term that really kind of came up for me. I heard that term brought up a little bit more towards the kind of second 10 years of my 20-year career. It's just like this kind of understanding about how the baby is still developing. And we also talk about the family, right? The parents are still developing. So I think that it was a term that was attempting to kind of bring a little bit of normalcy to the feeling of adjustment that happens on first and the 3 months after the baby is born.
There is also a component of, as far as pregnancy is concerned, your body for the 3 months after the baby is out is still working a lot.
Adjusting to get
Yes.
back what it used to be.
If there is such thing as getting back to what it used to be.
Close to. Let's be optimistic.
Are we ever? For better, for worse, right? We are changed with each time that we give birth, I would imagine, right?
Exactly.
I think first trimester is different from the whole family, for the father and for the mother. Of course, for the baby also, but I think that's a totally different experience for family, baby, mom, and dad, because that is gonna adjust, because actually meet the baby, because as a woman we can feel the baby, we can still have already have some feeling and connection with the baby, but for the dad it's like the very beginning of the story, so kind of an adjustment for that too. And mom, I think it's the emotional and physical continuation of the pregnancy, so that's not an easy period for new mom, I would say.
But it's good that it's recognized. I think, as you said, maybe lately it's been more put in the forefront, but for the longest time, after baby was out, it's like, oh yeah, now we're full on into being a parent. But that recognizing that transition, I think it's a big step for society in general to say, like, okay, those 3 months are actually key, right? And they have a name for it.
Yeah, I think that, we don't kind of do a very good job. I mean, I think that the beginning of the discussion, at least for me in the context of being a pediatrician, was to describe the ways that the baby, neurologically especially, but even vascularly, many elements of the baby's body was still developing, was still literally in transit. So a lot of the things that people would observe when the baby's hands and the feet would turn blue, they're like, what is that, right? And that was basically the wiring is not there yet. And it was this idea that, like, you know, there's still time that like needs to be understood, that the baby is not, you know, you look at those pictures when the babies are first born, you know, they always con you in getting those pictures done, right? So the first baby, you do it, right? Because everyone's doing it, whatever, right? And then you look back, the baby's 3 months old, and you're like, who is that alien? Like that, like what? And the second baby, I'm not gonna take the picture, and somehow they get you every time, you know? Like this squishy looking, bluish, like weird looking thing, and you're like, what is this thing? Because it looks so different by 3 months.
Well, when you think about it, like their skin is the first few months of being exposed to air compared to water, right? Their lungs, like their stomach, everything, all of that is exposed for the first time, even though they've been inside for.
And the light also.
The light,
the eye and the sound. It's not filtered anymore by your belly and the liquid. So for the baby, it's kind of a huge experience.
We bring all this stuff up because it sounds awful, but we want to give you a little bit of hope, right? Because you look at the baby and the baby's spitting everything up. They can't stand the eyes. I mean, they're kind of messed up. They look like little aliens that like haven't been out in the world, which they haven't been. They've been sitting in your belly, you know, for the last like 10 months. I say 10 months because really, if you count it, it's actually 10 months. But anyways, around 10 months, right? And so in many ways, the idea is that, you know, it kind of allows, it puts everybody in the mind frame to be a little bit, to give a little grace, to give a little bit of, to know that like things are still moving. Things that were like a disaster on the first week will not even be present by the time that the baby is 3 months old, right? So allowing ourselves to understand that, you know, the immune system is still transitioning, sleep is transitioning, eating is transitioning, digestion, the reflexes. There's a moral reflex that literally is a reflex that literally is the first 3 months. So like there are a lot of places
bonding
where
too, like the physical touch, the I feel, I don't know if that's a real thing, but I really feel like the hormonal fusion or like connectivity between the different players. To me, it was like it's just something very distant. And then the first few weeks were like developed that little bit of a link, right?
Well, I mean,
from the.
I think that it's a little bit, again, you know, you're kind of putting it in the context of the baby, and the baby, that is true, but you also have to realize that you kind of went through a traumatic situation. You know, you were pregnant for so long, and then literally this baby is pulled out of your body. So your whole physiology needs to shift. And then you're thrown into a situation where you're probably not eating great. You're probably not sleeping great. Okay. So in many ways, you know, connection is like a two-sided situation. So not only is the baby kind of up in arms and chaos, so are you.
Yeah. And what I did not realize for my first one, but it is very true, and nobody tell you that, is that you've been pregnant for 9 months, so you are the queen. Okay, everybody is here for you. You are on top of everything, and all of the sudden the baby is here, and the baby is here. So you are no one. Like everybody comes and say, "Oh, he's so cute," and you're like, "Hey, I'm here."
I know.
Hi, hi, this year maybe a hug or you know, a hug, right? And nobody tell you about that, but you socially pass from like the queen as like a mom, and your baby is the whole attention thing. So it can be like, for some people, maybe like a little bit hard to get that less attention.
And yes, everyone's excited to see the baby, but who's producing the milk for the baby? You. So like, you know, I do talk a lot, like in those first couple of bits, I'm like, listen, you know, I know you want to be happy and everything like that, but honestly, when people come over, they should come over with food. Like literally, you need to demand, right, that everyone pay attention to you, right? Because you don't get what you need, the baby actually suffers. And being able to say, yeah, okay, you know, now everyone's excited about the baby, no one remembers about me, but honestly, like this, I need to be be taken care of. For me to take care of that baby that you think is so cute, right? I need to be taken care of too, because my body is still healing from something that is physiologically traumatic.
And that's what some of the comment that we got. I'm looking at our Instagram right now where we posted a couple of questions, or not question, but what people thought of when we brought the term fourth trimester. And Jordan mentioned, my hard point was trying to do too much. I think that was the first time, Mom, I really didn't understand the recovery aspect of it all, since I felt fairly okay. Then I tripped on a walk and twisted my ankle just enough to humble me. It's okay to accept the help that's offered.
That's it, right? So that is, you're right. It's a two-way. Not only should you demand it, but you should accept it. If people are trying to give help, why do we have this whole idea that like, poof, we're back to normal? Like literally, like my kids are in college. I don't feel back to normal yet. When was I supposed to feel back to normal? When was that supposed to happen? Okay. So, the truth of it is that this is, that first, I always say those first 2 weeks, but even like those first 3 months, there has to be a certain acceptance that we need to advocate for ourselves. We take care of ourselves to be able to take care of others. And the sooner that you kind of take a page from that and kind of remember that, then as you go along, life is actually better, right? Because there is a community ready to help you. And if there isn't, then you have to give it to yourself, not push yourself so much that you forget, right? That you forget to rest, that you're not doing these, that you think that you're invincible. Because frankly, if I've learned anything in 25 years, is how to be humbled. And I feel like there is this like energy in the world that it's like, okay, if you're not going to take a break, your body will make you take a break.
Yeah.
The world, the energy will force the situation. There will be a reckoning, right? Everything comes at a price, right? So the sooner that we say, let me just be humbled by the fact that like, I just gave birth. I just pushed out a baby, that was growing in my body, right? The sooner that we can say, you know what? I need to be able to like take the community, the village that is around me and do the best I can and not beat myself up all day.
And it's not it's not a downfall, like it's not a weakness. You're freaking strong for carrying a human being. You just made a human, right? You made life. So, and no matter like the birth itself, the whole like carrying, giving some of your own body resources to build somebody else inside, all of that, you're already like a superhero. So you don't need to show off and go running around on day 3 to prove the point. It's already proven.
Right.
And if people around you are not seeing that, change the people around you.
Realign, right? Realign everybody, right? Because I do think that sometimes as women, because we're just not good at advocating for ourselves, we just carry so much on our shoulders, when a lot of times I see that there's always like this strange pause, especially like very type A women and, people kind of do it all. And, we're not always so good at giving other people confidence, which means that if there's people around you that are offering to do something, but maybe they don't do it exactly the way that you want them to, that's okay, right? Because they're going to get there. They're going to get to like being, or they'll do it in a way that actually is maybe even better than the way that you thought that they should do it, right? But you have to be patient that like other people around you are not going to do everything perfectly. And life isn't about being perfect. It's about having support, right? And being to like, able to kind of offer, that confidence that like, yes, thank you for helping me. And thank you. You did a great job. That's totally going to do it. And you read that.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
I was about to say, those moments where you're heavily vulnerable and you let somebody in your life, those connection and that support, that's going to stay with you for a lifetime. Like that, surprisingly enough, that's when I met Fanny. Yes. She fell into my life at that very moment where I was like my life was all over my head, and she was there, and she was still, it's been 12 years, we're like hanging tight. But those relationships that you have, same thing for my doula, same thing, like I feel like, I don't know if you have the same experience, but for the people that were there in that moment, that support goes years, and it even fills you when the person is not in your life anymore. You know it gives you that strength and that confidence to go in your motherhood journey?
Well, you know, they have this phrase, and I try to bring it up at least once a meeting because I do think it's a great phrase and it helps me a lot. And it's just a Chinese proverb, the idea of like they're born the way they are to heal the family. And I think that if you are someone who is always used to doing it your way and you don't accept help, you always want to do everything yourself, when you have the baby, that literally goes out the window. And that's a good thing, right? Because you're right? Because we all are vulnerable at certain points of our lives. And we all have to be open to like allowing good energy to come to us. If you're always kind of like that superhero that nobody can ever help, nobody can ever touch, you don't even like kind of lay the foundation for someone to feel like they're a part of your life. So this is a good thing. You know, it beats you up so much, right? That like you have to make the village. Sorry, you know, the village has to be made. And I think that, you know, if you can take it for that half full idea, then I think that we could see a lot of moments in our lives with our children that kind of dig us into force us to be stronger than we thought we would ever be, you know. So that to me is the half full, especially when I'm in the thick of something that's really like so hard for me. I'm like, I know this is for the better. Like, I know I'm going to come out of this stronger. And I have to remind myself, and I do, because, you know, honestly, we're all lazy. We're just all lazy. And so we'd rather just kind of move along life, you know, but children do not allow you to be lazy, right? They force you in a way that like nothing else could ever do. You know, they're like the super trainer, you know, they're just like, whether you like it or not, you are going to be forced to be a healthier person through them. And, you know, I want, you know, when you talk about the first 3 months, but like, you know, I'm not kidding when I say that I'm still like getting used to this transition, you know, like I think that life maybe should be like in 3-month increments, right? Where we're just like every 3 months, we're like, oh my God, so much has happened, right? And, you know, it just never stopped, you know, I have people who are pregnant and they're like, wow, this like chaos of having children, does it get better, right? Does it get better? And I'm like, and I pause because I just don't want to answer too quickly. So I don't want them to think that I'm actually thinking about it, but I actually have a very fast answer. And my answer is usually like, no, you just get used to it. Like it's not even a matter that it like goes away. It always is there, that feeling of transition where like you feel like, you know, you're moving, you're changing, you're growing. That's because you are.
And you said, as you said, it's incremental, right? So it's not like you're dealing with teenage years when the baby is out in the first 2 weeks. So it gives you the step to build the confidence, the communication with your partner, with your kid, and then you learn from that and you build on top of each other to a point where each new challenge is like, okay, now we have a whole history of how, foundation of how we do things together, how it works, you know, in this scenario. And it gets, I don't know if better or worse is the word, but it gets enjoyable too, to take the challenges and be like, how are we going to face it together? And it's not so much of a me thing and more of a we.
And the reason why I say that, because you see the way that you frame that, you said, wow, this thing came up, right? And boy, how are we going to challenge ourselves to get there, right? I have a lot of people that they're with their kids and something happens, kind of dramatic, right? Something happens. And they're like, oh, I thought everything was going to be so smooth now. I thought it was going to be so easy now. Why is it getting hard again? And I'm like, because that's why it's always been. You kind of pretended like it was smooth, but like it was just around the corner. It wasn't like it goes away like done. Like it's like, oh, okay, they turned 5, I'm done. You know, it's like there's always another challenge right around the corner.
And so it's actually positive because there are new challenges because you took care of the other one. Right. Otherwise, you would be stuck to challenge number 1 for 20 years, and you don't want that.
Kind of boring.
You don't want to go through potty training for 20 years. You want to move on to other things.
You know, it's not. It's and I think, you know, I was at a conference once, and they were showing this thing like moving through the brain, and they're like, "What is that?" You know. And, you know, people could, and it was actually a neuron, you know, that they were actually showing like your brain, as you go through things, you actually build neurons, right? They kind of go to different parts of your brain. It's kind of amazing. It's like growing an arm. You know, it's kind of amazing that your body does that, right? But it can hurt, you know, like it's your body is growing. So a lot of times, you know, they would say like, if people are going through things and they're like, oh, it's so hard. It like hurts, like how much we have to change our life and we got to change things. They're not lying. It actually does hurt. I'm not going to like I'm not going to gaslight you and say like, it feels fantastic. You know, it's hard, right? But when you come up, there are moments where you come up and you're like, wow, whoa, you know, like what the hell was that? Like, you know, we got through it, but like, whoa, you know, I think humor is fantastic. I am laughing every day, constantly. And when I get together with friends, it's always like, oh my God, let me tell you this crazy thing that we went through, you know? Because only when I laugh about it that I'm like, oh, that was like it was horrible. Like, there'll be moments where I'll be going through something kind of awful, like kind of crazy, and I'll be like, this will be very funny in about 3 months. But like,
yeah, and let's wait 3 months. Everything works by 3 months.
So back to the question that we had on Instagram, like the answer. The other two that we can maybe, I don't know if we want to combine together. The other comment that we got a lot were the lack of sleep and the difficulty to feed yourself in a healthy way when you don't have the time, which is related to the sleep, right? So those are the two, like eating and sleeping are the two main things that are challenging during the period.
And I think we can square back with the first question, is that accept help.
Yes.
At least for the food, maybe in the registry you can put some Uber Eats card, or at least you just have to order, or as you said, if you invite friends or friends want to come the baby, they come with food. That's become a rule. And that's part of accepting help, I think, for the food. But sleep, it's more complicated.
Yeah. You know, I think that, you know, there is one of the things that I find fascinating, and yes, like logistically, like meal prepping, like if people are around, like if two people are around with you, either have someone watch the baby or someone meal prep for you. Like literally, it has to be a constant thing so that when you're by yourself, the preparation is like you throw it into something and it comes out and you eat it. Like it's like that's all the prep that you can really do when you're one-on-one with the baby. So that's great. Have a basket. I always tell people have a basket of all kinds of like easy to reach foods. The more of those are actually coming out more that are aimed towards women who are lactating or women who are postpartum, right? And so the idea is that while you're feeding the baby, right, and you're literally like stationary, right, because without you're running to do the laundry, you're running to clean this up, right? But you're literally trapped under that baby who's feeding on you, right? Or you're even feeding with the bottle. Have a basket of food that you're literally eating. So I would say it's like a vending machine. Whatever gets taken out needs to be replaced. Right? Out in, right? Out in. That's all we're talking about. This is like, and even if you're not the one breastfeeding, like you need to put food into you to be able to be alert, for you to be able to be think clearly and not get crazy anxious, right? Because anxiety is like having a cut on your arm, having like an abrasion on your arm. You know, we don't think of our brain as this physical thing, but that's all that anxiety is that we're just a little bit raw. Things are kind of like hitting us a little bit more. Like people are saying things that they don't sound that nice right now. Like we have the energy, right? To be able to calm and like listen to people and not get upset.
Yeah.
So that's a big, kind of marker to me when I have someone who's like I can talk to and they're spinning, right? They're spinning and I'm like, when is the last time you ate and when was the last time you slept, right? Because you don't do that.
And even if you're not breastfeeding or you just need food to recover, like your body has been depleted of a lot of good stuff, so you need to refill that. Regardless, or even the baby, you just need to build that up. So you need all the vitamin, you need all the water, like all the fluids, because you're drying out. So you just have to like refill yourself, replenish your body so that you can move on to sleeping.
I think that the reason why I say all these things to almost legitimize it is because I cannot even tell you how many mothers come in and they may be breastfeeding or not, and literally like the baby is kind of like out of it, she's out of it, and she goes, I just haven't had time to eat. And the fact that like there was no line that was drawn between your energy level the baby's energy level and you're eating, the fact that you don't see that as like a one-to-one equation is a real flaw in the way that we've really talked about this. I mean, and I'm going to blame modern world, because you look at any cultures, right, that have taken care of postpartum women, and all of them do a better job. It's really in this generation. I'm not, you can tell me a little bit about French, but I know the Asians, it's like all about feeding her. Like literally that person is sitting and there's like 3 people trying to feed her at the same time. You know, like literally like all they care. They have special soups for the women who are, I mean, they literally like, they're like, it's all about the food. Right. And so that to me never made a lot of sense. You know, like it was kind of a weird thing, you know. In France, I don't know how do they think about food and postpartum?
Well, in the modern world, I think we got caught up with the being quick.
Yeah.
But food is so much part of the French culture anyway, that we have food before pregnancy, during pregnancy, after pregnancy, when we're happy, when we're sad. It's just very food focused anyway. So I think women understand the importance of eating and eating well. The one thing that French women have over American is time off. So the maternity leave and the social system there is very generous, and that make those 3 months, that remove that anxiety of financial burden, keeping your job, the medical expenses, all of that are worries that get out of the way, that help you focus on eating and sleeping and, you know, caring for baby. Because that's also another big burden that we noticed that is here in America that we never suspected when we were back in France.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that there is a lot when society says, no, like you have to heal for 3 months. Like it's not even, and I think that, you know, people are like, I feed the baby with the formula. Why do I have to eat more? I want to get thin. I have a couple people say I want to get thin, so I don't want to. And I'm like, you need to heal. And I think that one of the things that we talk about a lot on this app, just because I think a lot of people don't talk about it, again, going to the mental wellness, right? There's a lot of anxiety in this first 3 months. It's not a coincidence. It's not just the fact that there are more issues. It's also because you are not healthy, like you are not healed. And one of the first places to go when you are not well is your sanity, you know? And so that's the reason why, you know, it's a little bit of a taboo when we try to name it, you know, postpartum depression. I think everybody is off. You know, I don't think that we need a big, heavy diagnosis before we can recognize the fact that, like, emotionally, mentally, you know, you were talking to Cecile a little bit about, like, the bonding. Like, you know, when you're exhausted, you're just trying to survive. So now I'm like, oh, then you should bond, and then make sure that you do this, and make sure that you do that. And it's like, I am just trying to make it so that, like, that I'm, like, sitting upright. You know, I mean, you're completely disoriented.
And the lack of sleep, I don't know, I knew what lack of sleep meant until I was in postpartum. Because we've all experienced, you know, young days, like one sleepless night where you're like, oh, I'm tired, and then you kind of feel, you know, cloudy the next day, but then you're fine. The lack of sleep is debilitating. Like, it's really something where your brain cannot function.
Right.
And until you go through it, and then you feel like, oh my goodness, I'm losing it. And you're like, I'm never going to be the same again. When we talk about, like, pregnancy brain or mommy brain, it's just that not everything has enough power to work. And that is both scary and also, like, it makes you feel like you're dumb and you're like, well, what's going on with me? When that absence of sleep for a repeated number of time, like, it's not just the first week. The first week you're like, yeah, I'm tired, but your body knows how to cope with that. It's like the 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 2 months, and then it's like
after 2 months it really gets you, like, it's very hard on you because you don't have any, like, reserve of this sleep. Like, your reserve are done. So that's very hard after 2-3 months.
And sometimes we feel like it's going to be only a week or two. That's why, you know, like this comment that said, oh, I felt okay, so I kind of overdid it. That's because we feel like, oh, it's just the first few weeks. But that's why this third trimester is 3 months. And cutting it short to 2 or to 1, I think it's a mistake because we don't realize that it's adding up. You know, the lack of eating, the lack of sleeping, the lack of mental wellness, the lack of, you know, hygiene, all of that is what takes a couple of months to actually show some bad effects. So usually it's not surprising, like at least for me, as you said, 2 months is when I was like hit by a wall. Because before that, I had support. People were coming, giving me food, but all of that vanishes, and you're by yourself.
Right.
And then when you're like, oh my goodness, I'm tired.
No fuel on the tank, alone on the highway.
Yes.
With a newborn.
You just hear the crickets, right? And you're like, where the hell? Where is everybody?
Exactly.
And I think one of the things that's the reason why I like working with you guys is because, you know, we are just in the medical community trying to give you data that says you are not crazy, right? You are not being hysterical. You're not being too sensitive, right? Show you the data that actually tells you that physiologically this is what's going on, right? So we are just starting. So one of the studies, which I don't know why I know, but I read a long time ago, when they do torture research, sounds terrible, but like, what does it take for someone to break, right? If you have less than 4 hours of uninterrupted sleep, you start to go clinically insane. So when they do torture, they'll wake you up once an hour, right? What the? That sounds like what a baby.
Sounds like a newborn. Totally sounds like a newborn.
Total, right? In total, I got like 10 hours of sleep, but I was up every hour feeding the baby.
Exactly.
And sometimes you're not even up because you have this mommy instinct that every time it quicks, you have this like half a second of you're awake, and that enough, I'm sure, gets you out of sleep because your instinct is like something is, you know, happening with my baby. That's why there are all those memes around of like dad sleeping like a rock and mom being like something is happening. That's because we have that primal instinct of like, if they make like a burp, we're like, okay, we're up. Like, not necessarily up, we're like out of our
the sleep is interrupted.
Yeah, just to give you actually, again, more science, it's actually the estrogen levels in our body. It's actually our hormones that actually don't allow us to kind of reach that deeper sleep. You know, listen, everything was made for a reason, right? Frankly, right? So in the end of the day, if you have a newborn baby, somebody's got to wake up if the baby cries, okay? And I love my husband, but it's not going to be him, right? And I mean, there were times that honestly, I would just sit up. The baby wasn't even crying. And my husband would take a pillow and then push me back down. And I didn't remember it all, but it was just like this, like, so it's like, it's hormonal, it's primal, it's essential. It's made for a reason. Somebody's got to make up. So that's how we were tagged, right? So again, it's not because we're trying not to sleep, you know, it's just the way that it's working, and it works for a reason. Like,
but
right?
People need to hear that because, as you said, sometimes if you have a kid who sleeps through the night fairly fast, it doesn't mean that you have those 4 hours of uninterrupted sleep, and you feel like, okay, I slept 8 hours, but you did not. So it's okay. It's okay to but then fast forward, if you, I don't know, a friend come over and you say, I went to bed at 10 at night, woke up at 8, then it feels like you had a freaking, you slept for like half the day.
Right.
When in truth, you have to understand that when you say that out loud, the other person is not allowed to think that you slept.
Yeah.
So it's okay to still take like 1, 2, 3 naps during the day if you need to. And it's not going to be something where you have to feel less of yourself.
No. Again, we're all talking about things that are physiologically programmed and normal, as opposed to like, you know, something that you're doing wrong. And again, we're just trying to change the narrative because we're just trying to survive and be able to do that. And all of that angst about like how I'm doing something wrong, you know, I'm a terrible person, I am not doing what I should do, is just wasted energy. So the more we can pull that away, the better that we do. You know, we do better, right? And I think that that's part of the reason I spend a lot of time in my visits when I would have babies that age. Literally, like the whole time was like a freaking pep talk. I should have worn like a cheerleader outfit, you know? Because the whole time I was like, you can do it. You're doing it. You're right. Like, you know, I just had to kind of like try to push against this wave of like anxiety and guilt that I knew that was partially physiologic because they were feeling so vulnerable at that moment, because when it gets into your head, you really have a hard time having the energy to fight it. Yeah. So the more positive stuff where people are giving you that space, that grace to say, you know what, I know I slept all night, but I don't feel rested. Like I'm exhausted still. That's legitimate. You're not making that up. That's real, you know? Another thing that they found is that they did a study on new parents, men and women this time, which is kind of great because, right, why are we not including the men, right? The men, this is a new thing. They go through a lot too. And they did kind of DSM category, like doing questionings to see like where everybody was in terms of their mental wellness. 80% of parents were clinically depressed.
Wow.
So talk about trauma, right? And that's a 6-month study. That's not 3 months. That's 6 months, right? Because there's so many things that happen that snowball. You know, you don't eat well, you don't feel well, you're getting anxious. You know, you might get into fights with people, right? Because, you know,
you don't connect to one another. You don't necessarily have that relationship.
You lost that time that you have, like,
right?
to...
And so all of a sudden you look up and you're like, it's 6 months and I feel like shit. You feel like shit. Like, are we going to ever get out? I mean, you really start to feel like, am I going to get out of this? That's because through all the stuff that you're going through, you know, you're probably developing some depression, right? You're not seeing your friends as much. You feel really isolated. You know, it's, you know, we all got a taste of it in COVID. You know, we all got a taste of what that taste looks like, you know? And I think in many ways, you know, again, normalizing this and saying, yeah, this is what we're all going through. That wasn't a 10%. That was 80%. More, way more than half of the people were just not in a good space. And everyone's like, oh my God, you must be so happy. You have a baby. You're so happy, right? And you're like, I don't know. What day is it today? Like, when was the last time I took a shower? Like, I don't know. Am I happy? Is this happy? Like, I mean, you just don't know what to say. Yeah. So this is what it is. You know, having a baby and having children has great moments. I am not saying that there aren't, but it is hard. Mm-hmm. And if you say, you know, let me get the village, right? Let me give myself a little bit of grace, right? Let me not expect everything is going to go perfect. Let me not need everything to be perfect, right? Mm. Let me let go of whatever I could let go. Let's go with the bare minimum, right? You find a certain humility. You find a certain amount of happiness at just basic things being good. That's better. That's better. Right? You have a much better chance, you know?
Lowering the bar of expectation.
Right?
Yeah. For the baby, for your friends, for everything. Just
get that.
Be content with little. But I think in our society, it's very hard to be content with little because society is throwing so many things that now we're used to having so much that having little is becoming like, it's not
why?
Right? Yeah.
And I'll take it another level. Again, I always bring up this concept of performative parenting. In our space of social media, everyone wants that big picture with the baby. Great days, like the baby's so, I'm so happy, the baby's so happy. You know, we're being told to be like that. And then, like, you know, once the camera's off, we're lost. You know, we're like, but what is the reality? Where am I actually? You know? You talked a little bit about mommy brain, you know, which, you know, is what it is. But, you know, I remember my husband, we were just talking about, we're celebrating a big not reunion, anniversary, you know, and so we're going to go back to Martha's Vineyard. And one of the first times I went to Martha's Vineyard, I went with the kids. I remember about 2 years after that trip, he asked me, he goes, oh my gosh, do you remember that you went to that restaurant on the third day and like, you ordered the steak and it was so good. Like, you know, it wasn't even his meal. I don't even know why he remembers these things. And I remember I turned to him and I was like, did I enjoy it? And he goes, what do you mean? What do you mean? Do you not? I go, he's like, don't you remember we went? I go, I remember packing for the trip, but I don't remember like while we were there. What did we do? Was it nice? Like, I was like, blank. And he's like, I think I was so stressed about packing the kids' stuff, making sure that they were good on the boat, making sure they were okay. I don't remember like really being there, right?
Your mommy instinct went for what was critical and left out everything secondary, like enjoying.
And so things that, so there was a study, again, I love these studies because I sometimes just find studies to make me feel good, you know, like okay. And literally what had happened was that the study said that stress decreases the brain's ability to remember.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, yes. Like, you know, I realized at that moment that multiple times, you know, in my life where I was the most stressed. And I think it's God's grace, honestly, because I don't think I need to remember every stressful time in my life. Just delete it. Just go ahead and just delete that. I think God's like, just forget it. But the idea of it is that, you know, being able to, again, have grace with yourself and say, you know, I was stressed out that time. I will say that has motivated me to decrease my stress. Knowing myself and knowing what I do, and sometimes the way that I process things when I'm with my kids or I'm doing something and I'm getting kind of like caught up in like making sure everything is perfect. I literally will try to stop that because I know that that's just it's gonna decrease the memory of it. Like I know that I'm gonna be trying to overmanage everything, that I'm just gonna like end up going into that stress mode and maybe not being present, right? Maybe not being able to like appreciate the moment. Because I remember that study and I know what those years were like and how I just would forget, you know, what was going on. And I think that, you know, being present for my kids, when you really ask me, you know, why? Like, you know, what are things I really regret or the things that I would have worked more at, that I wish someone was coaching me to do, right? Was to just be more present. You know, you know, we work, we run around, we try to do everything as women, and it is what it is, right? But in the end of the day, we don't have to do everything, right? If you're going to take home a point from anything, all three of us in our hindsight are like, let people help you, right? Ask for help, accept help, right? Delegate. I don't care what you do, but you don't have to do it all. And don't have to do it all. Just try to be present and let it be the way it is, and roll in that, revel in that, right? Because it's a cliche, but it goes by really fast, you know?
And I think it's also empowering for others, because when you are in the present, it forces others to be there too, and to notice you more, and to notice more how they can help. So it's like a process that keeps on giving, right? So because if you're trying to control how people help you, then they're not going to be able to explore other ways that they could help you. So if you just be there, accept what's coming, then more is going to come.
Yeah, that's a really, I have to think about that. Wow, Cecile, you like blew my mind on that one. I gotta think about that. So talk about that a little bit, because I really like that concept. That's a really, you know, something that
I've been trying. So my kids are 10 years old now, and I'm trying to apply that principle, that to not jump on doing something and just sit there and just embrace, like okay, the numbness, which we're getting after a while, right? Like everybody is there. And I'm surprised that sometimes, I wouldn't say every time, sometimes something just comes up that fills that bucket of, I don't know, extending a hand. And I'm like, oh, thank you. And my kids would be like, oh, Mom, can I do that for you? And I'm like, okay, sure. Because I think also seeing me not doing something, maybe they're like, oh, now there must be something wrong with her or something. I'm not sure. But it is opening a door for them to be like, Mom, do you want a glass of water? I'm like, sure, I'll take that. I didn't know I needed one, but it's because I stopped. And when I stop, then other people start walking. Otherwise, if I'm running around,
to enter in your space, like
you know, I really love that, because again, this is something that I feel like one of my like take home lessons with my kids now in their 20s or so. And you know, we've really seen that in the field of pediatrics. Unfortunately, we've talked about this in other talks about allowing, you know, kids to get bored, right? So they can fill. Again, I love that concept of the idea of something else coming in to fill, the space, right? So, when you allow them to kind of have empty space, empty time, right? Then their own interests come in, right? The things they kind of get obsessed with and they want to fill it with something, their own self-initiated knowledge, which is one of the best predictors of kind of success, that self-initiated want, right? But it doesn't happen if they're like completely scheduled, right? It doesn't happen if everything's all lined up and they really don't have that time that's empty, like almost like a vacuum or a void, right? That allows something to be filled. But I really love the fact that you are practicing this when your kids are this age. And the reason why I tell you this, and one day you'll hear me when I say this. So when my kids are upset, I'm not very good when like someone's upset and there's like that silence. I'm just terrible. I want to talk, right? That's just like my fault, just ask later. Just see you want to talk first. I'm like the worst. Like, God, I would used to, and when I was very young, you go on a date, you sit at the table with this person you don't know, right? And they don't talk. Oh my God. I mean, my voice would be so hoarse within like a half an hour. Talk, because I was so nervous. The other person's not talking. I freaking had to talk. I remember one of the ways I knew my husband was the person that I was going to marry was that we sat down and he started talking and I didn't have to talk.
Wow.
And I was so happy. I was like, I don't have to talk. You're going to talk. We're going to have a conversation. Oh, this is fantastic. I don't you like I'm an Oprah or something, like you could actually talk. So that was a good sign for me. But I will tell you that adolescents, they're adjusting their rhythm, right? Again, we're talking about the 4th trimester. Sorry, ladies, it keeps going. Like the adolescence, it's a whole nother adjustment, right? Mm-hmm. Again, getting used to this idea of challenges and adjustments. And adolescents, I find a lot of times it's because they're trying to mature their inner voice of like what they want to do. So they'll come to you as parents and they'll say something and you're like, oh my God, what the hell did they just say? Like, and I would add to it and then we would start to fight, right? And they would be like, there would be this whole kind of like escalation of emotion. And then my husband would just jump in and would be like, what's up? That's it. Sucks. I can't say anything.
Don't get caught into the emotion, yeah.
Right? And then my kid would just calm down. And so what I started doing, and it was hard for me, but I'm so glad that you're doing this now, is that if I came up to them and something was going on and they were saying things, I would just give that space. Just let it. I would be present, clearly listening to them, but I paused. And a lot of times I would pause and you hear them almost like they kind of like it comes out what they're really feeling. They're working it out almost in front of you. They don't need you to even like say anything. They just want you to, they do want you to be there. Mm-hmm. But they don't need you to be pushing in. They want space, like to breathe, let it air out, whatever they were thinking. And some of this stuff is foolish and crazy and whatever, but they just want to air it out. And we feel sometimes, especially as parents and mothers, especially type A, like we want to be fixers. We want to fix it or arrange it or do something. And sometimes they just need time to breathe.
And it's the same thing, on those first 3 months. Is I feel like there is also an overstimulation of what we feel we need to be doing with that baby. Mm-hmm. Most of what they need is just time to do nothing.
Sleep and eat.
But beside that,
and bone,
just like, they don't have to be stimulated. They don't have to be like, it's just being there. If you hold them in your arm, that as we said, the dealing with the light, the sounds, the stomach, all of that, there's a lot going on for them. So they don't need the extra toy around their face and walking around 20 different areas and meeting thousands of people. And we do need to also remind ourselves that less is more at that time. For mom, but also for baby. Leave it alone. It's a good thing.
I had this mom, she was like, the baby has reflux. The baby has reflux. They're always spitting up whenever I'm feeding it. And she's talking like this, right? The baby's just spits up and I'm trying to do this and I can't. And she had 2 other kids. I'm just doing all this. The baby's, and then at one point, I had to leave the room and then I walked back in, right? So she's got a baby in here. She's feeding the baby. And with like, I don't know what other arm or hand she had, right? She's on her phone, right? She's on her phone, right? And literally she's holding and she's on her phone. And I'm like, I walked in and the baby's like spinning up the and I'm like, hold on, wait, stop. What are you doing? Like, and she's like, I'm trying to feed the baby. The baby's spinning up. I go, no. What are you doing with your phone? Like, what are you? She goes, oh, I'm trying to book a Disney trip for the whole family. I'm trying to book the Disney trip, you know? And I'm like, no.
It's
I
too
go,
much.
no, stop. Okay, put the phone down. I go, let's just take
Breathe.
hold the baby. Don't shove the bottle right, like they're just right. Look at the baby. Is the baby hungry? Let's just see if the baby's even hungry. Like, she was so out of step with that moment because and the baby is so empathic, right? They're like little sponges, you know? So they're just absorbing all of that stress, you know? They're like, spit the food out. We got to go to Disney. Like, I'm like, I don't know what's going on. So, I mean, you know, in many ways, again, they're born to heal the family. Right? If you're really type A, you're hearing us, and you're hearing us tell you in those first 3 months, if you're going to remember anything, in those first 3 months, I think that is totally it. You know, like literally, like less is more. More that you can just like, you know, have other people do things.
Yes.
Right?
You are achieving something by doing what you feel is nothing. I had a hard time with that when my babies were born. I felt like I was at home, my husband would go to work, I would have the baby in my hand, in my arm, he would walk out, he would walk back in the afternoon, I would be in the exact same position. Nothing, I mean, from an external standpoint, nothing would have changed, but I would not have stopped all day to like feed and then, you know, like the diaper, all that stuff. And I felt miserable because I felt like I wasn't producing anything. I wasn't adding value. And then he's the one who stopped me down and said, hey, you're growing. I mean, you are maintaining again, a human being, and you are the sole reason why this human being is making it another day. So in that, there is value. I don't need you to be painting the house or whatever. I see that you're sustaining something. And that relieved a lot of my pressure to be overachieving.
Yes.
Right. And I think that there is some value, and this is something that we talk about for ourselves. We talk about our families. This is a modern day problem, right? Is that we are so disconnected from like primal rhythms. You know, again, we're talking about basic stuff here. Eating, sleeping, stress, right? These are just like primal things. And in so many ways, you should honor those moments that you get to just ride the rhythm. Eat, sleep, poop, eat, sleep. I mean, like literally, like if anyone has an opportunity, this is an incredible opportunity to reconnect, replug in to basic primal needs. And when you do that, you realize the rest is like all this other stuff that like literally consumes our energy and our like just our thoughts. It's just so unnecessary.
Yeah, and at some point you'll be managing this rhythm and you would have rebuilt yourself and replenished your tank, as you said, that you're going to be able to look at other things and be like, oh, and it won't look as hard to do. You'll be like, sure, I'll do the dishes.
That would be the great
sure, I'll take a shower.
Right.
It's not going to be imposed. It's going to be like, oh, that makes sense. Like, I can fit that in. But you're already riding, as you said, you're already riding that wave. You know the rhythm. You know what's coming.
Back with that rhythm again.
But 3 months is not too much for that. And I know it feels like a lot of time when we say it now, but whoever is listening, 3 months is 3 months. Just like pregnancy is 9 months for a reason, you can't stop it at 5 and say, okay, I think I've done the most of it.
Oh.
9 months is 9 months, 3 months is 3 months. You have to take that time and carve it into your calendar today and mark that day of 3 months after you have your baby as being a special time.
Yeah. And I'd like to think, being half full, that when you really learn to, because you're forced to in a really primal way, to take care of yourself again, to take care of your baby, that those habits that you build in those first 3 months are just going to continue, right? They're just going to, you may take care of yourself better after those 3 months than you did even before you were pregnant. You know, so many people won't do things for themselves, but if I tell them you need to eat so that the baby can be fed, they're like, okay, I'll eat, right? But if I just said you need to eat to help take care of yourself, they're like, whatever. Whatever. And I'm like, okay, I don't understand how you don't see that it goes together. Even if you're not making the milk, if you are getting anxious and angry and you're exhausted, right? Sometimes you're exhausted because you didn't eat all day, right? You cannot be a parent to this baby that you would want to be. So, you know, what we can physically do, what we can emotionally do is we ask so much of ourselves. Like, just take care of the eating, the sleeping, and the stress. And like you said, Cecile, the other things will come. You know, the bonding, the feelings of like, kind of like being able to be present and joyful. But like, we just say, okay, well, you know, we always like focus on like, are you bleeding, right? Like, are you like, is there an infection? You know, that all these things. But we don't really talk about like, are you present with your baby? Like, are you able to get past your anxieties? You know, that you can actually say, okay, wow, look, I'm with this baby. This has been a very productive day. I've gotten the baby to be able to grow and live. Wow, that was a good day. You know, like, this is like I did 35 things, you know? How about just like I was able to be present with this baby? Check that off the box. Day is over. Perfect. Good.
And it's a double win, because what you just said is you will remember this moment. While most of us, we went through that moment of our life and we only remember if something traumatic or very hard happened. But actually remembering those days, it's harder. So if you want to remember those days and cherish those, whether it's your first kid, second kid, fourth kid, that's your key there, to just be there and lower down every expectation.
With that.
So we'll close it there. I think there's a lot of things that we'll think about, like always with those episodes. And then we're meeting next time and we're going to talk about baby number 2. So that's another.
By the way, I love that people sent questions. So fun, right? It's really exciting for us, right? To get that feedback.
So send more. We want questions for next time. So the topic is going to be baby number 2. What do you think? Are you expecting your baby number 2? Are you anxious? Did you just have your baby number 2? How was it different compared to the first one? We want to hear from you. And we'll be happy to see you in our next episode of Mom's Talk with a French accent.
And if they joined late, they can also find you guys on YouTube, right?
We're on YouTube, and all the videos, we put them on YouTube. So we'll see you there as well.
Enjoy it.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Varisa.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.